Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. In today's video, I am going to be doing kind of another wrap up of my first year flower farming. This video in particular is going to be all of the lessons that I have learned in my first year. So I have around 10 lessons. I have my laptop here, so I'm going to be chatting through these to just share some things that I have learned personally this year about flower farming and starting a business, so that maybe you can apply these to your business, whether you're starting a backyard flower farm, or you can just hear about some of the challenges that I had this year and how I overcome them. So if you are new here, my name is Robin and I live here on the south coast of New South Wales with my partner and our 2 cats. We have a backyard flower farm here, so we grow in different areas of the backyard. We are definitely limited in terms of space. We're also on a rented property, so we don't personally own this land. So a lot of it is kind of a little bit more temporary. We haven't really invested in a lot of infrastructure, nor have we really put a lot of money in general into this farm. We're definitely doing this on a very low budget and just trying to grow as much as we possibly can in our backyard, where we sell different mixed bouquets and do special orders both at markets, and we also sell in-store at my local garden centre, and I run an online shop where I sell the flowers and other kind of botanical gifts online as well. We grow all organic here on the flower farm, and everything is done using hand tools. We don't have any machinery to run the farm. We don't have any tillers or anything like that. It is all done through hand tools, wheelbarrows, and a lot of hard work. And that's not necessarily to say you need to do it this way. This is just the way we have chosen to do it to really minimize our costs to grow this business. And also we haven't really wanted to invest too much money in it because we wanted to see how much we could earn just using hand tools and doing the bare minimum to grow this business. So this year, which I'm filming it in 2023, has been the first year of us actually selling the flowers. So in about late January, early February, started selling. So I've kind of had the year to grow and learn and understand how this business works. But I did kind of start the flower farm, or at least decide to start the flower farm back in 2022, probably around June or so. I think that's when I did a video announcing that I was going to start a flower farm. So I kind of did have an extra 6 months on top of this year to start the flower farm, but it wasn't really until March, April this year when I was actually starting to learn different lessons. So a lot of this is going to apply to my first year, which technically is this year of when I have been selling flowers. I would really love to know any lessons that you have learnt in your first year flower farming, or just where you're at right now with your flower farming journey. So definitely leave them in the comment section down below. We can learn from each other. And if you do find any of this helpful, I would really appreciate it if you like the video and subscribe for more videos. It really does help me out and is completely free for you. So the first lesson that I learned was diversifying income is really important when you are running a backyard flower farm. So I don't think I mentioned, but we are on about half an acre or so, but we really grow on maybe a quarter acre or less than that. There's really not that much space comparatively for the property we're on for where we actually grow the flowers. I technically could plan more beds and plant it all out, but that's not really the plan for this property. So I'm kind of very limited on where I can grow, how much I can grow without turning the whole property just into garden beds, which for a rental isn't really ideal. So I've selected certain areas of the garden which I have turned into the flower farm area. So yeah, just wanted to mention that we are definitely on a limited space. Because of that, I can't really be producing like 50 or even 20 bouquets every week. I'm really limited on the amount of flowers I can actually produce and sell. And therefore I have really been trying to make the most of every plant that I put into the flower farm. So I've gradually learnt this over the past year that what I am planting, it really should have a few other ways in which it can earn me a little bit of money rather than just being a fresh flower. This doesn't go for all of the flowers, but for majority of them, I've tried to have them as a way to just make a little bit of extra money on the side of being the actual fresh flower. So what I can do from the space that I have, I can do a few things. So one of the things that I have definitely been trying to do is by selling extra plant starts at the markets. So every time I plant some seedlings, I try and select ones that you wouldn't necessarily find in a lot of nurseries, things like zinnias, specialty snapdragons, specialty stock varieties, straw flowers, even things like mint and lamb's ear. I try and just sow or propagate a few extra to sell at the markets, and that then ends up making me quite a little bit of money from the side, particularly because I don't actually plant all of the seedlings that I end up starting, which is another point that we'll get to. But that's one of the things that I've been doing, as well as drying leftover flowers. This has made me a lot of money this year, and I really underestimated the just amount of product you can get from drying leftover flowers. So status and straw flower have been the main ones for these. Also drying flowers to have as an add-on product in the bath salts, so drying flowers to add to those to then sell, and then also saving the seeds from the plants to then sell that in my online store as well. So I am really making the most of all of the plants that I have planted, so that they don't just have the one source of income being the fresh flower, that they have multiple ways that they can bring in money, and I'm really making the most of that space where they're planted. Another way I've diversified my income is by opening up to do consultations. So for whether someone is wanting a flower garden or how to plant flowers or veggies or whatever it is, just opening up consultations, because I do have so much knowledge on how to grow things. So I've opened that up, and I've been doing a few consultations from that, which has been really fantastic and a way to apply my knowledge and also diversify my income. As well as, selling all the flowers at markets, selling all the products on there, online, in store as well, and just making myself available on Instagram to bring in sales. Diversifying all of those areas where I'm selling flowers has really been a learning curve, but really has taken the stress off bringing income in when I have all of these ways of earning money. YouTube as well is another one. When you have a lot more ways of diversifying your income, it's a lot less stressful. So that's something I have learned this year. Another one is planting more of less varieties of flowers. I think this is a lesson that everyone is going to learn, really, but I am trying to stick to more full rows of flowers, so just doing one full row of one variety that I can then harvest at the same time and get at least a few buckets of that one flower. That's been something I've been working to, and it's something I've really learned, that growing more of one variety is just going to make your life so much easier. So I've been trying to just be a little bit more minimalistic in the types of plants that I'm planting, because it really has helped me out a lot, rather than just sowing a little bit of that and a little bit of that, just sticking to ones that are your focal flowers, your filler flowers, and then some foliage on the side. Just really simplifying recipes has been a very big learning curve. And one of the ways I've been doing this is trying to just focus on 3 flowers at a time at a certain time in the year. So for now, it's sunflowers, zinnias, and straw flowers are my 3 main flowers that I've been focusing on working with. And then I have all of my fillers like feverfew and wild geranium and all of the other beautiful little fillers, but I'm not really focusing on them. The bulk of my bucket I'm wanting to be sunflowers, zinnias, and straw flowers. That way, when I'm coming to making the recipe and the bouquets using those flowers, it's much more easy for me to think of how I'm going to put them together, and also just saves me so much time when I'm harvesting as well. So in the cooler months, what I was focusing on was stock snapdragons and status and anemones. So that's going to be my cool season focus. While now it's all of those flowers that like warmer weather, and I'm hoping to add on dahlias to those as the straw flowers kind of phase out, because they're almost ready and I'm very, very excited for those. So I think this is a lesson that everyone just needs to make and probably will make, but if you figure it out sooner rather than later, I promise you'll thank yourself, to just really simplify what you actually grow on the farm. Number 3, I have really learned how to market specifically for my local customers. So by this I mean just finding your local customers and marketing your flowers according to them and what the different platforms that they're on. So for me, Instagram has really worked this year. I haven't so much delved into the world of Facebook yet, but Instagram I felt really comfortable with and has been really working well for me. I'm really surprised on just how many local people there are on Instagram. I have a separate Instagram called The Patch in Bloom, which is my flower business, which is separate to the YouTube one. I'm thinking about combining them, but we'll see in the future. But it has been really helpful just to have a separate dedicated local Instagram. I get quite a few orders just from that, and I have less than 400 followers there, but I get consistent orders every single week from local people who find my page. And I think that is due to just me also sourcing out all of the different small local businesses in my area, giving them a follow, they follow me back. And then I think that kind of adds me to that little local algorithm for when people are looking for local businesses in my area, I do pop up because I have followed all of those local pages, which they're also following and looking for. So that's definitely something that I've learned. Instagram is working really, really well for me. I have heard a lot of good things from Facebook, so I'm going to delve into that soon and start marketing on there. But I really love photography and I love just posting photos anyway, so that's why I really like Instagram. And although photos don't do too well on the overall algorithm, I suppose, they still seem to reach the local customers that I'm after. And yeah, followers on Instagram is really not a big thing when you are just searching for those local people, because obviously when you get more followers, you'll probably be getting people from outside your local area following you, which aren't necessarily going to buy your blooms. So yeah, the more followers you have isn't necessarily the best thing. You want to be focusing more on local people who are actually going to buy your product. And so networking with local businesses has really helped with that. Number 4 is that staying in your comfort zone isn't necessarily a bad thing when it comes to your first year of flower farming. I do hear a lot of people talking in business that you do need to step out of your comfort zone, and change is a good thing and feeling uncomfortable is a good thing because it means you're progressing in terms of your business. But I do think in your first year of flower farming, just staying comfortable and really just learning how to work with the flowers and how to grow them is super important, and is something that I have slowly learned throughout the year that yeah, it's a good thing to just stay comfortable, particularly when, you know, you have to wear so many different hats when you are owning a business. You have to just do so much and it can be so overwhelming that I've really just tried to minimize the stress and anxiety in terms of selling flowers. So I do have a little bit of a customer service background. I have worked in retail before, and just generally I don't mind having a chat. I really love like local markets, so I felt really comfortable running a market stall. If anything, I was actually a little bit more nervous to go to businesses to ask if I could sell flowers in store. So yeah, I just really think that finding what you're good at, what you enjoy doing, just go with that in your first year, because you'll have so many other things that you need to learn, and you can, you know, be outside of your comfort zone with so many other things. Like the website that I was doing, I only just got that done at the end of the year. It took me a whole year to get the website done because it was out of my comfort zone. But the whole year I was still managing to sell flowers even on Instagram and in person and the market. So I really got comfortable making the bouquets and learning how to actually work with the flowers. And now can be the next step after I have, you know, been in my little comfort bubble to then start this website. But I do think that it was really important for me to take a step back at the start of the year while I was just starting the business and stay in my little comfort bubble to just learn how to run this business rather than going off in a million different directions. So yeah, if you are anxious and nervous to start, just do what you're comfortable with, get really good at it, and then go from there. Number 5, I really have to include this one, and it's probably going to be in everyone's list, but that is don't start more seeds than you have room for. I think everyone just has to go through this lesson and learn, but it's something that it's just been really disheartening for me that so many of my seedlings this year are just sitting there. I still have some snapdragons that I was supposed to plant months ago. They're not going to grow now, so I'm not going to plant them, but yeah, I just have trays that are just sitting there. I have zinnias that I haven't planted. They're like flowering when they're like this big outside, because I just didn't have the space prepped, and life happened, other things happened. I didn't have the ground prepped, so instead of doing that and just starting like trays upon trays at once, I really tried to limit now what I actually start in terms of seeds. So maximum 4 trays are started at a time, so that I can then start the seeds in those 4 trays, raise them up, fully plant them out into the flower farm, and then start some more seeds. That's just what works for me, because I do get really overwhelmed with managing the seeds. I don't really have a good nursery setup, and if you are in your first year and you don't want to invest in a lot of money, you're probably also going to be in that position unless you are buying like greenhouses and things like that. I don't. I just have a very simple setup that is outside in the elements, and I have to start the seeds in the garage next to a window. So yeah, just don't start more than you have room for, and don't get overwhelmed. Number 6 kind of goes along with the previous one, but this is to just not set unachievable goals and tasks that are going to overwhelm you. So this one will really look different for each and every one of you, but for me and the way my brain works, smaller, more categorized jobs are just going to work a lot better for me and aren't going to overwhelm me as much. So I really found categorizing my daily tasks underneath my overarching high level goals has been really helpful for me, and Scott has helped me set up a little spreadsheet to allow me to do this, where I do have all of my really higher level goals listed on a spreadsheet, and then each daily task corresponds to that higher level goal. I have dates on when I would like to complete those goals, and therefore I can go to that list and then create some tasks throughout my week that are then going to be linked to those goals to make sure that I'm actually on track and that my brain just doesn't get overwhelmed. So each week I will sit down and write a list of tasks to do. I'll kind of group them into like whether it's flower farm maintenance, the online shop, working on that, whether I have a market that week and I need to harvest, wash buckets and do all those things, and they will correspond to my high level goals. And then I've also have a column where it's all color coded on the progress of that particular task, whether it is a to-do task and I haven't started it, whether it's in progress, so I am completing or about to complete the task, and then fully completed. And that just satisfies my brain in particular to kind of color code it and be able to tick off the tasks. Therefore, I can stay on track and actually see that I am being productive in the week, or else the way my brain works, I will just go outside and work on a million jobs at once, rather than focusing on what actually needs to be done to get to what my overarching high level goals are. I've also found that grouping tasks can be really helpful to get jobs done outside, and you can group this in however works for you. Some days for me, like grouping them into monetary tasks works better. So one of the things that I usually will do is to go out and pot up at least like $80 to $100 worth of seedlings for the markets. I only really have to do this once every few months just to have a few extra add-on products for the markets, but grouping that into more a monetary goal can definitely be helpful when running a business and trying to reach certain goals. Or I will have goals that are directly related to growing and just the physical flower farm. So I'll just focus on one row of the whole flower farm, make sure I weed it, mulch it, fertilize it, plant out any seedlings, and just focus on that one specific area. or if I have some flowers to harvest and arrange bouquets, I'll just have that as the one job for the day and maybe just leave the other physical tasks for another day if I can, depending on what needs to be done that week. But I do tend to get very, very overwhelmed if I do have a million jobs to do. So categorizing them and taking them one at a time has been really helpful for me. And that Excel spreadsheet, we've only been implementing it in the last like 2 months or so, but definitely is going to come in handy for my second year running this business. Number 7, something else I've learned is that all of the smaller sales really do add up when you have a small backyard flower farm. And that kind of ties in to that other point where I was talking about like diversifying your income. But those small sales, like the potted up seedlings that I sell at the markets, even just things like extra small little status dried bouquets, usually with the status, and I've explained this before, you'll have like that one main stem, but then you might have a few shorter stems that come off that status. And I have been using all of the short little ones in $5 dried arrangements, and that doesn't sound a lot, but I have actually made quite a bit of money just on those add-on products throughout the year. So again, just keeping a lot of those dried flowers or flowers that you can then dry that you would otherwise compost can really add up over the year, and is a great way to have products that all of your customers can enjoy, whether they have a lower budget or a higher budget and they can buy the larger bouquets. I've just found having multiple different price points with the market stall has been really, really helpful, particularly just for someone who wants to buy a small gift for someone or just wants a little momentum from that area if they're a tourist. Having smaller priced items has really paid off for me. And that's something that I'm really going to be leaning into in this next year, is looking at how I can create smaller products and sell them on the website. So lots of seed packets. I also have plans on doing some little dried flower packets that are great for sensory play. So I'm excited to look into that. But yeah, those smaller sales, they have really helped me throughout the year. And I've learnt that they are valuable for my customers in my area in particular. So it might be something to consider if you have a smaller growing area. Number 8 is that intensive growing in a small space requires intensive nutrients. And keeping up with nutrients and compost this year, I've just found it really difficult. I honestly just didn't realize how much nutrients I needed to consistently put back into the soil when I am growing so many different things and then ripping them out and starting new plants. With the flower farm, it just requires a lot of compost. So yeah, it's something to keep in mind, and I'm not quite there. I don't really have a lot of advice yet other than just making as much compost as you can. I'm really leaning on my worm farms lately. I have about 5 at the moment, and I have plans to add a few more to the system and add a few more compost bins, because I do find a lot of the times when I add worm castings and obviously the homemade compost, that creates just the best soil. I just need to be making more of it because I have a large area, and the little ones that I have right now, the compost bins, they are definitely not enough. Obviously, I could just order in some compost, and I have added a small amount of mushroom compost to certain areas of the flower farm, but I am trying to do this on a budget, and I want to see how much I can grow without having to order a lot of compost in and having to order that in multiple times throughout the season. So I'm leaning on other things like finding different amendments. I have plans on just buying a few that are going to help with my soil, to really help with some of the deficiencies that I know the soil has. I really let the soil health side of things go a little bit this year, which is so annoying because every time I go out there I think about it, and I do have a soil science background and I know how important it is, but I also know that it can be incredibly expensive. So I suppose this year I really just trialed how much I could grow, but I am now just realizing that I think the soil is definitely being depleted a lot more as I am growing and the plants grow and uptake nutrients. So I'm definitely going to have to add in a little bit more nutrients, and maybe just not from the worm castings and compost, but plans are heaps more compost next year to add to the soil, and some amendments that I will be purchasing very soon and doing a whole video on. Number 9 that I've learnt is don't stick to the seed packet. The instructions on how to grow the seeds, I don't always stick with it, and I have a lot more success not sticking to those instructions. Now obviously I'm not talking like do the opposite of what it's saying, but in terms of things like how to sow the seeds, a lot of seed packets will say sow direct. I prefer to start all of my seeds because we do have so many animals and critters around that actually dig up our seeds. But more specifically, the spacing I've found closer together rather than what the seed packet says is just a lot more efficient for a flower farm. A lot of these seed packets are just designed for home growers where you're only growing like 1 or 2 or a few of the variety to have ideal spacing, and so that the plants aren't necessarily then going to be competing for nutrients and water and all of that. But for a flower farm, you'll find farmers plant a lot closer together, which is what I've definitely learned this year, that I was spacing things way too far apart. An example of this was the stock that I was growing. When I was growing column stock, I could have planted double the amount of those plants in the area because I was only getting like the one spike that came up. I just wasted so much space on those plants, so the foliage could grow really beautiful and lush. I just needed the plant for the flower. So next year I'm going to be adding things a little bit closer together and growing more intensely, because that is what you've just got to do when you have a flower farm, particularly backyard business where I don't have a lot of space. And often when you plant plants closer together, the stems are going to be a little bit taller and straighter as the plant reaches for the sun. So yeah, that's the plan moving forward. You do want to make sure though, just with some varieties like dahlias and zinnias and a lot of other plants, you can get powdery mildew and other fungal diseases if the plants are too close together. So you've got to be in that happy medium of not too far apart that you're actually losing space, but not too close that then you are risking adding disease to the plants. So it's all about kind of just learning and growing and seeing what grows well together. So I'm still learning on this step, but it is something that I have figured out this year. I need to move plants close together. And the last lesson that I have learned that is a very generalized lesson, but that is just do what works for you and your flower farm. Really general, I know, but there are just so many videos and so much content and books and pictures and information out there that you can go in a million different directions. And, I found myself following certain people throughout YouTube and Instagram and finding that the way they do things isn't really going to work for me. So by all means, find inspiration from other growers, but when it comes to actually planting the plants and arranging the flowers and harvesting and just running the whole business, just do some soul searching and remember why you're doing this. Learn from local people around you, lean into what your customers want, and just do what you feel comfortable with and what makes sense for you. There's so many things about starting a new flower farm that people will tell you to do, and I don't think a lot of them are actually that necessary for a first year grower. Some of these things like weed mat, for example, I've heard so many people talk about it, that you absolutely need it, 100%, you're not going to have a flower farm without it. And by all means, if you do have weed mat, that's again, your decision, you've done that for a reason. But when everyone's saying that, I feel like I should, but I haven't this year, and I've actually found that I really prefer so far the backyard flower farm without it. Now granted, this is going to be very different if I am a much larger scale grower, growing on a lot larger area, but for my small little backyard flower farm, I like the look without weed mat and just having mulch in the pathways. So I found that I really like that, and to not necessarily listen to all those people who told me that I absolutely need weed mat. Irrigation was another thing that everyone said to have and to install before you start growing, or else you're not going to have plants. And I don't have any irrigation set up on the whole flower farm. Granted, we have had a very wet year last year, and this year we have had quite a bit of rain as well. I do have a small sprinkler that I turn on when it is really dry, but I don't necessarily think you need irrigation throughout the flower farm unless you are in a really dry area. So again, do what works for you. If you think you need irrigation and you have before in terms of growing veggies or whatever else you've grown on your property, then install irrigation. But I think that just growing for the first year, figuring out what you really do need rather than investing so much on infrastructure is the better way to go, in my opinion. Also, just minimizing the amount of content you might be consuming is probably a good idea if you're starting to get overwhelmed with the amount of work that you have to do in your own flower farm. I personally love YouTube, and I have a YouTube channel. I mean, I love also just consuming flower farming content and a lot of other different content, but I just think it's just the way our brain works that if you are just consuming so much, you're eventually going to start feeling like things should be a certain way when it's not the case at all. So if you feel like you're getting to this point, maybe just unfollowing, doing a clean out of your Instagram and your subscriptions is a good idea. Maybe muting people who are just posting way too much, but you still want to follow them for certain tips or photos or things like that. But just, really staying in your own lane and trying to be as confident as you can is really going to be beneficial for your business, and has taken me the whole year to kind of learn that and figure it out, to not just be using larger flower farming YouTube channels as just like the go-to for information, because often these larger channels are completely in a different climate to you, or even on the other side of the world, if you watch a lot of the same flower farmers that I do. So that information is just not going to be applicable for you, and is just not really worth spending your time worrying about or comparing yourself to. So just be gentle on yourself if you are in your first year. Just do what works for you. By all means, find inspiration from other creators, but don't necessarily use those as the go-to source of information for what you should be doing in your business. And that is it. That is most of the lessons that I've learned. There's probably a lot more that I haven't discussed in this video, but these were the main ones that I wanted to chat about today. I would love to know what your lessons are, what you've learnt in your flower farming journey, and where you're at, whether you're just starting out or you have been in this business for a long time. I would love to know and love to hear your feedback. Would love to see any comments or advice that you have in the comment section, because I really do think these videos are super helpful. I've personally watched a lot of them and gone through comments and read them. So if you do have any advice, please do leave them in the comment section so that we can all read them and share. If you can add in your location as well, we might be able to see if anyone is located kind of in your area or a similar climate that we can just learn from and share advice. If this video was helpful for you, make sure to give it a like and subscribe for lots more flower farming and gardening content. I really hope you enjoyed hearing about all of the lessons that I've learnt, and I'm really excited for next year to look back on this video and see how things have changed, what lessons I learn in my second year to gradually grow this business. So I'm going to leave a link, and I'll add these videos as I film them and edit them into a playlist of just my first year flower farming wrap up, or a look back on how we did in our first year. But I really enjoyed filming this video and putting it together, so I hope you did as well. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to see more, you can head over to Instagram. The Patch and Bloom is my Instagram flower farming account. I also have a website, thepatchandbloom.com.au, if you'd like to order flowers in my local area, or you can purchase other products on that website as well. So thanks for watching this video. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are in the world, and until my next one, happy gardening everyone. Bye.